We're very excited because we were just over on Instagram.
Yes, our first live on Instagram. We made history. We actually
Yeah, so if anybody's on Instagram joining us tonight, hi everyone, you made it back over here really quickly. And if you're not on Instagram, find us on Instagram /@Surviving Homeschool. Very simple. And we're back in our t-shirts, and it is a clean shirt.
I got my V-neck today.
You do have a V-neck today. Next time we'll coordinate.
We got to coordinate.
Yeah, so I see lots of folks joining. I see Carol, I see Rashida. I've missed some folks because my numbers are higher than the folks I can see. So
yeah, we can't see everybody, but hello and good evening. Thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday evening. We're excited for you to be tuning in to our Is Homeschooling Right For Me series, day 3.
Day 3.
We're into day 3. So today's focus is about socialization. It's a big thing. But in this whole series, we're talking about the 5 top questions that you actually need to consider and heavily think about if you're actually toiling with the idea of homeschooling. Monday, we talked about finding your why. That question would be, why do I want to homeschool? And we laid out how your whys actually lay out your conviction and is your foundation, the reasoning why you continue to do it, and your motivating factor that will keep you pressing on when things get tough. We also talked about the fact that if your why isn't strong enough, you'll have a really hard time in completely fulfilling that actual choice. If you're exhausted, if you're frustrated, if you're just feeling done, or as I say, hashtag over it, if your conviction isn't strong enough, then you're not going to continue. And when making that decision for homeschooling, you really have to figure out if your conviction is strong enough. So that was day 1. What did we talk about yesterday, Delise?
So yesterday we went into the when. So when am I going to have time for homeschooling my child? And while it's true that some people who are considering homeschooling have an opportunity or are doing that, and they have the option to either work from home, similar to now, or not work at all, or have a more flexible work schedule. For others who that's not an option for them, that is a consideration about when, in the midst of everything else I have going on, in the midst of what I have to do for my job, or maybe it's in the midst of what I have to do in terms of caring for others, when am I supposed to fit this in? And we said that these questions are also questions around lifestyle, because when we're thinking about when we're going to homeschool, that may mean that we have to make some adjustments in terms of our lifestyle, but it begs the question, which is a real question: do I have the finance to do that? Is time, do I really have the flexibility in my schedule? And we talked about the fact that this may not be realistic for every family if you don't have those types of if certain levels of flexibility or certain levels of support. But I did say, and I'm encouraging those who are considering homeschooling, I did say that I do know, Erica asked me to bring receipts, I do know single mothers who work full-time and homeschool. I do know families who the parent works outside of the home and they're able to homeschool. What does it require? It requires several things that obviously we would get into, those details when we talk in our workshop starting next week for all next month, but it would require a ton of support. So we talked about when.
When is heavy. So today, our third question, and this is a big question that a lot of people actually wonder about. I saw some people asking about this in some of our forums in our group. So we should also consider the question, what about socialization? So people always ask how children that are homeschooled actually develop their social skills. And there's all kinds of stereotypes that those who have not been exposed to families that actually homeschool assume are actually true. And I have to be honest with you, Delise, you are my single friend that homeschools.
I don't think I knew that.
You're all these years, you are the one and only friend I have that homeschools. I had to do the math, I had to check. Yep, you're the only person I know that homeschools in the formal sense of homeschooling.
Yeah.
And had I not had exposure to you and your family, I wouldn't know the answer to this question either. Like, I would have no clue of how your children or anybody else's children that homeschool actually develop those social skills. So I think that's how a lot of families whose children have always been in traditional school, if you're in traditional school, you don't necessarily have that network of homeschool friends to know what they do. So
yeah, and it's a total fair question, right? It's a total fair question. So I understand that misconception that that homeschoolers are basically at home, right? That's what people think. We're at home, that the parent is the primary teacher teaching all subjects, that maybe there's little kids sitting around us, and yes, there's a part of that definitely happens in some families and in some homeschools. That's very true. However, for our family, we call ourselves, and actually probably the majority of my homeschool friends, I would call them Roam schoolers, because before shelter in place, we were all outside of the house for homeschool activities. For me, it was 6 days a week if I include, the sports activities that would happen on the weekends. And so those are the classes at their tutorials, at their cooperatives, at the hybrid school, where they're taught most of their core subjects beside other homeschoolers. So imagine a place where homeschoolers are gathering, and either we've hired a tutor or we've chosen a parent who has a specialized skill, or we have or it's a hybrid environment, a hybrid school environment. So it's actually a certified teacher who's standing there teaching and engaging in a second grade classroom, like my youngest daughter, 3 days a week, 3 half days a week, but it's still full of homeschoolers. And so we were doing those. Also, we had our programs at the parks, at the nature centers, at the parks and recreation centers, at the embassies. Derica knows, because usually, I'm calling you like you rolling. And all these various other organizations. We had music and art lessons, out at various nonprofits and other organizations. We had Model UN. We had speech and debate team. We had ballet classes. We had sports teams. The list
making
really
me tired.
It does, right? Right? It does. Right. And so the idea of socialization around homeschooling, the truth is that the bigger challenge is actually finding time to sit down with a math book in front of my child. The truth is that trying to find the time that actually have some dedicated one-on-one time at a desk, as opposed to in the car, is a bigger issue for many homeschoolers than actually finding opportunities to get your kids out and about. And get them exposed and, socialized with other homeschoolers. So like many of you, my kids miss their friends. They miss their teachers. They miss their tutors. They miss their coaches. This is not norm for them either. And so, because they've never been stuck in the house in this kind of way. And so for almost a decade of homeschooling, this is a new thing for us. And so when you're considering homeschooling, the question really becomes, how does socialization look like in your family? Because it's really important.
So I guess for those of us who haven't had exposure to the homeschool community, we have to really reframe our idea or our definition of homeschool, and probably think about it more like a school without walls, where lessons can take place any and everywhere. I guess, the other side of the coin is there are those families that choose not to actually go anywhere. But with homeschool, I guess you have either option. You can have the option of participating in that long list of things that Delise said that made me tired. Or you can, say, hey, we're going to stay home with your math book, your science book, and the computer. Or you can do some type of integration of both, where you have something outside of the home and something inside of the home. But I guess that flexibility is provided by that choice to homeschool.
Absolutely. Both of those are options, right? All of it is an option. All of it on a varied scale is an option. And even if we have a family, like if we think about what has happened with this quarantine, right? All of us are in the home, and how are our kids being socialized, right? We're scheduling Zoom meetings. We're doing, drive-bys, we're doing social distance, events or, meetups. We are, utilizing, events with our church. We're seeing family. We're going to parks or playgrounds, like, not parks and playgrounds, not right now, but out, later, right? Those children could be going to parks and playgrounds. And so when we say, a parent that doesn't necessarily want to participate in tutorials or doesn't have the flexibility in their schedules to do those kinds of things during the day, they have those social outlets of their church or social groups of their family and things of that sort to also socialize, their children. What also, fun things that we've done, Dee, Derica's son, obviously traditionally schooled, my son homeschooled, they're best friends, and they've been taking classes together, so that's a way that they're able to socialize with each other. They take a class and they have to work on projects together. And so there's all these varied levels of socialization that even happen when you have to be in the home. And so really, for those who do want to be out and about, when those social stay in place orders become more relaxed, I would say that instead of asking about, how am I going to socialize or what is socialization? Can you get socialized as a homeschooler? It's really, do I have the flexibility in my day to take my children to these multitude of classes and programs that are options in my community? Do I need to deploy some help to be able to do that? Do I need to pull in some resources from various places? Would online classes provide the socialization for my kid until I'm done in the evenings and can take them out to their ballet class or to their lacrosse practice or their football practice? Would those online classes work? I see someone on the group asking about the hybrid schools. And so the hybrid schools allow you to go 3 days a week, and some of them are just 2 days a week, but allows you to be out a half day or out for 2 or 3 days a week. And then for the remainder of the week, you're providing the instruction. And so it's very different, obviously, because it's not 5 days a week like a traditional school. And many of those hybrid schools are half days. I like to call them private school for homeschoolers, because some of them can have uniforms. We have all the spirit days. We have all the proms. There's a whole
tuition.
Thank you.
Don't forget about that. You said private.
Yes,
Sorry.
and there
Sorry
is
for
tuition.
Interrupting.
No, that's true. And there is tuition, because I was just on the call for my child's hybrid school, and we were talking about tuition for next school year. So you're right, that is timely, and it is tuition as well. And so but when you think about like what's an option for someone who needs to work full time, and wants to participate in these things, you would do the same thing that you've done probably in the past, right? You find a buddy in the class, and you and the parent set up some kind of carpool thing, right? You don't always have to drive them to every single event or every single activity. You could do it in the same way that you've managed, to get them to and from school at 6 o'clock in the morning, or when the bus stops or whatever, or, coordinating those opportunities where you do a pickup, someone else does a drop off. Those things work as well in the homeschool environment. So the real issue, and before choosing homeschool, is really to explore like what could be a potential solution.
So keywords I'm thinking is flexibility and bandwidth. So when you're thinking about the when, you have to think about what is your flexibility and how much bandwidth you have. And those two things will pretty much determine your homeschooling scenario that you actually can develop for your kids. I'm thinking that you could compare it to how as traditional schoolers would use or choose extracurricular activities, for after school and for weekends, and how those activities have to occur during a time when me as the parent is available to get them back and forth, because I'm Uber. So, if I work until 5 or 6 p.m., then the soccer team that meets at 5:30 is not an option.
Right.
Because I just can't. So I think we have to think about it like that. So in planning a homeschool program, you'd have to, those of us that work full time, it would have to fit into, the plan for the entire family. And also I thought about for socialization, it's interesting that, and for my boys, some of their strongest relationships with other kids are those kids they spent 2 hours with twice a week, rather than the kids they are with all day long, 5 days a week. It's very interesting how some of those strongest connections are made with the minimal amount of time during the week regularly. So I think socialization isn't something that has to be 6 hours a day. It can be in small bursts throughout the week. And it's interesting how some of those strongest relationships are formed in those small bursts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, and I'll add to that, you know, one of the things that's been most surprising to me, and I would say almost a great blessing in homeschooling, is also that the parental opportunity to socialize, right?
Definitely.
And so that idea that I get to see some of my really closest friends basically every day. We coordinate classes with our kids. You know, we hang out outside those classes while the kids are in class. And I will say that sometimes we literally, like, I had friends today text me, like, which camp you gonna put the kids in? And I'm like, yeah, because we're gonna be hanging out while they're in camp,
right.
You know? And so the idea that the socialization is not just about the child, that parent also needs a level of socialization. And, you know, the being able to coordinate and put your kids in classes with friends that you're really close to has been a really great, you know, unexpected blessing too.
Yeah, you're actually making me really miss being on the sidelines with the other soccer moms right now. You know, that was my social time. So how about we keep moving on and change the subject? Seriously, I miss my sideline time with the moms. You know, that's when we hung out, and we always made sure that our kids stayed on the same team so that we could stay together. So
exactly, it's the exact same thing, right? And it's just translated into a different educational, example. But it's the same. It's the same need. It's the same thing. And we've been able to figure out a way to make that work in the homeschool community as well. And it makes a big difference for both the parent, and the child. So I really just want to encourage everyone. I know we're getting close to, we're over our 15 minutes, but
don't go speed talking.
Okay. Well, I guess I just wanted to encourage everyone that's considering homeschooling. If you're worried about socialization, that it's possible. There are ways to find meaningful relationships, both for yourself and for your child, in a homeschool community while homeschooling. You'd really just have to consider your own personal work and your own personal family situation. And I feel like we can get into the weeds because these are such personal and really, decisions, and really specific. People have really specific needs, and that's why we decided to do that private group and that workshop, so we could really sit with folks and talk with them on Zoom, face to face. There are specific questions. They're given specific answers to. Well, but I have a 12-year-old. Well, but I have a 17-year-old. Or like someone's asking about a high schooler, earlier on Instagram. How do I do this with my high schooler who is introverted? How do you do it with the introverted mom? I'm scared. I was on the phone today with someone saying that they were just totally scared. Like, we'll be able to really get into those specific challenges and fears in that group starting next week. And so I'm really excited about that.
So I'm going to throw in there my thing, how to do it with 3 kids. So for more details about this private group, you can visit our website. It's tiny.cc/survivinghomeschool. And we are also looking forward to seeing you here tomorrow, same time, same place. Okay, so let's run through this. We have discussed in our discussion of why do I want to homeschool. We've done the why. Why do I want to homeschool? When would I have the time to homeschool? And today, the big what. What about socialization? So tomorrow we have on the plan the who. Who. Like Horton here's a who. The who question. That's going to be interesting. Like, who's going to do all this? All right, no. Like, who am I going to pay to do this? Sorry, we're overtime. So we better go. But thanks for joining us this evening. We look forward to talking to you more, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the comments after this ends. Thank you so
much. Bye, Jenny. Bye, Leslie. Bye, Doreen. Bye, Nicola. Bye, Karen. Bye, so many of you. Takia, Stacy.
I saw LaShante and Keisha and Janet.
Yeah, see you later.
I feel like the romper room looking through the mirror. All right, good night, guys.